Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and today we are making a little bit of a scarier video. Not because spooky season is approaching, but because I am going to expose myself for having some really ugly plants. There is not a single collection out there that is perfect, and I just always want to share that message because it's so easy to compare ourselves to what we see online, the perfectly placed photos, I don't know, there's just so much that can go into hiding the pitfalls of houseplant collection. And I always want people to know that even I struggle with some plants. I've been caring for plants for a long time now, but that does not mean that I'm immune to plants dying or getting pests or just generally getting neglected. So I'm going to show you 3 of my plants today that look a little worse for wear. We're gonna start off with one that is kind of a trickster. Okay, so this is my Hoya obovata. And you look at this plant and you think, wow, that looks really good. Or maybe you already see what's wrong with it. But I've had this plant since 2019. I got this on a trip to California when I went on my last solo trip that I ever had before I got married. Very sentimental trip to me. But I got this plant among others. A lot of the plants from that trip I actually still have, which is really great. But this one has really gone through it with me. It was really happy when I initially brought it home. Obviously, when I was living in my apartment in Tucson, it had a really great spot. It actually looked like it was going to bloom at a couple of different points, but it just didn't get that far. And I wonder, knowing what I know now, if it had a pest that I didn't know about, like flat mites. But regardless, many years later, I have never been able to put it in a spot where it would get like exactly what it needed for lack of effort on my part, mainly because surely I could have. And there's a lot of plant here, which I'm actually really surprised that it's held on to as many leaves as it has, but it used to have a lot more stems up here, and slowly over the years, they've just sort of tapered off. You can see there's quite a bit of yellowing at the top. It almost looks like it has a sunburn, but it has not seen direct light in years, so that's definitely not possible. It really is just evidence of a plant that has been very slowly dying for many years, and I am doing my best to now give it the best conditions possible because she really deserves it. So I've potted it into this pot, which actually lives in the self-watering pots on my pulley system. So all of my plants that I have put up there with the self-watering pots have had a dramatic turnaround. So I'm really hopeful that this one will have a similar glow up. Rest assured, there is some new growth that it has put out more recently since it's been living in this room, which is currently 69% humidity, 81 degrees. So it's getting really great conditions. But as far as like the consistent watering and more light, not so much. So hopefully in that new spot, it'll get a lot better treatment. Before I lose my captive audience, I'm just gonna pull out the worst one yet. This was my Monstera esculito. And this is a plant that I kind of picked up on a whim when I was shopping I was on a road trip to Kentucky, I think I was going to. I lived in Missouri. It was like a 7-hour drive, and along the way, I was dropping off soil and I was checking out plant nurseries. And so I happened upon a Monstera esculito, and I had never seen one in person, and I was really captivated by these huge leaves. And you might be thinking, Becca, that plant's thirsty. Give it some water. I do. I've been watering this plant, but it was looking awful, like god awful. So I did what most people do when this happens. I put it outside. It's sunny and it's humid outside, and I have a north facing patio, so it like wasn't getting like a ton of direct light, but I did get a sunburn. But let's be honest, I put it out there so that I wouldn't feel guilty having killed this plant. I put it out there so that I could say, hey, I tried. It's not great. So you can see there's lots of dead leaves. The plant looks terrible. By all means, the plant is not dead yet. So I think what I might do is like do some wet sticks, maybe make an experiment out of it. That is one of the things that I really love about houseplants is even when they look like this, there is still so much hope for them. Like there is still so much opportunity for this plant to do something great. And I never want to let go of that, like that hope and that excitement for the experiment of plants, because this plant was not cheap. Number one, this plant is definitely one of those plants that I had always wanted. Like ever since I found out they existed, I was like, oh, I want that plant. Felt like one of those plants that I was like really aspiring to get. And then I finally got it and I was honestly quite underwhelmed by it, which I don't love when that happens, but it has happened a few times. Like I just really pine after a plant and then I finally get it and I'm like, oh, this is not what I thought it was. I think that I'm gonna use it as a little experiment. Eventually, when I get a moment, I am still watering it almost every day because it's outside, so it dries out really fast. So I'm watering it pretty often just to like keep it alive. And the stems are still very healthy, like everything's gonna be fine. It's just the leaves currently look like trash. So rest assured, even if your plants look like this, there is still hope and there is no shame in having ugly plants. All right, and our last participant in my ugliest plants would be my lemon lime prayer plant, which you guys, I am so sad about this. This is truly a dramatic turn of events. I watered it yesterday, so no, it's not thirsty. She is just majorly struggling. I found spider mites on this plant a couple of weeks ago, and ever since then, it has been really not in good shape. It's dripping water all over me because I have it in a self-watering pot. So I'm actually just gonna put it back in that. The water looks kind of gross because I didn't let the plant fully drain after I watered it from the top. So just know that's what's going on. It drained into the reservoir. Anyway, yeah, lots of curly, ugly looking leaves. And this is definitely a result of, I don't want to say neglect, because once I found the spider mites, I treated it as quick as I could. But sometimes that's just not enough. Some plants just take a really long time to recover from pests, and sometimes they just don't. I personally don't exactly have the time to really nurture this plant as much as I probably could and should and would have in past times in my life, but life has changed. And honestly, I don't want pests to be a death sentence for my plants in my collection, but this plant is very replaceable. And though it meant a lot to me and I was very happy to have it, it's not something that's going to be hard to find and replace. And also it's a good note for me to remember that pests exist, because I haven't had a pest in a long time. Like since I moved to this house, so basically a year, I have not had any pests. So you just kind of get out of the habit of checking and taking care of things like that. And I think also before I had these self-watering pots, I was much better about taking the plants to the sink and like spraying them off and things like that, which really helps with pest prevention. There's good and bad here, you know, lessons to be learned always from our plants that go downhill. This one, I think I'm going to just like take cuttings off of it and put the cuttings in water and put them in my greenhouse cabinet and see how they do there. But really don't have a ton of expectations that it's going to continue surviving in this situation. And though pests are a sad reality of houseplant care, it is a fun opportunity to go get something new and just to remember the lesson that we learned here, because plants, yes, they are replaceable, but I always, when I lose a plant, want to think deeply about why I lost that plant and what I can do in the future to prevent it. So of course, I've dealt with spider mites so many times, but there are still many lessons to learn from them. So this is one, even if you have more passive watering systems, don't forget to still check them for pests to make sure that nothing insidious is happening on your leaves without you noticing. All right, guys, I have been vulnerable. Now it is your turn. Please tell me in the comments down below, which of your plants is looking a little worse for wear? Do you have plans to keep it, or are you ready to chuck it in the trash? I'm gonna give you permission to chuck it in the trash if you really just feel super uninspired by it and it's like being an energy suck in your home, because there's nothing worse than walking past a plant that looks awful and just thinking about how awful it looks all the time and then making that about you and thinking that like you're a bad plant person because this plant looks bad. But look around. There are a ton of beautiful, happy plants in my collection, and these 3 plants that look a little worse for wear do not define me as a plant parent. They don't define me as a human. And I just always want to make sure that everybody, I don't know, can like internalize that message and remember that for themselves, because it's definitely one that I tend to struggle with. So Let me know in the comments down below which of your plants is struggling and what your plan is for them. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I put out new videos every Friday. We do plant tours together. We do videos like this where I'm just showing plants from my collection. Sometimes we do educational things, and also sometimes we look through Reddit and we like laugh about all of the funny things that are occurring on houseplant Reddit. I think I'm gonna plan another one of those really soon. My bookmarks page is getting really long, so stay tuned for all of these super fun plant videos coming very soon, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.